welcome to the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Jim.
And at Peak Wealth Management, we believe by providing education and guidance, we can help you retire with peak confidence. Jim, what the F is wrong with our parents?
I bet all our listeners are thinking the same thing right now.
Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the screen behind us. This is a remarkable Reddit post, which has been shared all across Twitter like wildfire with some very interesting takes, okay? So here's the story. My wife and I have spent almost 2 decades of leveling up in jobs and careers. We're now in our late 30s with 2 small children in a high cost of living state. We scraped and suffered to buy a small ranch house and 2 used larger cars for our family. Our credit suffered. I'm personally in $20,000 of credit card debt that I'm slowly working down. Our kids attend to daycare that bled our savings dry. Typical millennial stuff. Last week, I came across my father-in-law's account summary. Remember how we came across that?
Yeah, just laying around, huh?
$10 million plus. Later that week, I mentioned I saw that to my own dad, and he said, well, he's doing just a bit better than me. Literally, what the F? So this guy is upset about his parents' success. I would give my last dollar to my son to make sure he was more comfortable, to make sure he didn't suffer debt or bad credit as long as he was working. Here are our own effing parents sitting on their piles of gold, watching us navigate a new level of effed up economics and shopping for discounts and raising our children in subpar school districts. And for what? For what? Okay, Jim, let's unpack this. This is
a lot
awesome.
there.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a long one, guys. Okay? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's kind of think about the person's setup for a minute. And then I want to talk about the mindset and the entitlement, okay? So they're in their late 30s. They have 2 little kids. And he says the cost of living is really high, right? But he's saying, hey, we don't have a big house. You know, we have used cars, right? Okay, that's fine. But to get there, our credit suffered with $20,000 of credit card debt. Like, if you've been leveling up in your careers for 20 years, it seems like you should not have all this credit card debt, right? There's probably some bad decisions going on along the way, I think.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's some lifestyle creep in there.
Yeah. Like they say 2 used larger cars. Are they Escalades?
Right.
Or are they Tahoes?
Yeah,
Okay.
some of the language he picked is interesting, and that's one of them.
That's right. You don't want to, show all your cards, right?
But he did, but they had to have the larger used car.
Yeah. Now the daycare, that, I see that, and it's unbelievable what the daycare situation is like. So that bled our savings dry. So that implies that you had savings and now you don't, but they have credit card debt. Like usually you'd have the credit card debt like coming out of college or,
Right.
I don't know. There's no reference to student loans.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. No student loan reference in there.
So the guy feels like he's struggling, basically, right? He's feeling frustrated. Hey, I have a good job, but I can't get ahead, right? So then the next part of the story is that he came across his father-in-law's brokerage account summary with over $10 million in it. And this is unacceptable for him, right?
Yeah.
The jealousy, I think, really kicked in. So then he goes and tells his own dad, hey, I saw, my father-in-law's brokerage account that has $10 million in it. And then his dad says, well, I have almost that much too. And then he explodes.
Right.
Literally, what the F? Okay.
He lost it, yeah.
So like if you're 40 years old, your dad is probably like 65 or 70, right? Well, they worked their whole career. Now they're retired and they're top 1% type people, right? So they come from successful families. So we think, okay, so there's 10 million here and 8 million here. I mean, that's really good, right? Really good. But why is he so angry about that?
I mean, my first thought is entitlement. He just thinks they have it, I should have it too. Life shouldn't be hard for me. Like I should just be able to get what I want. I should be able to get the large cars if I want. I should be able to live in a high cost of living state. like he's owed those things. And if somebody out there can make it easier on him and they're not, they're wrong, not me.
Yeah, that's well said. So he says, I would give my last dollar to my son to make sure he was comfortable, to make sure he didn't suffer debt or bad credit as long as he was working. So he's saying, as long as you're doing this good thing, I'm going to help you. Okay? How are our own parents sitting on piles of gold watching us navigate a new level of effed up economics, and we're using coupons and shopping for discounts, and we're in bad school districts for what? Okay. So,
one thought I have, I mean, he's talking about we have to struggle and we have to use coupons and we have to do all this stuff. Well, maybe his parents did too, and that's why they're in the position they're in. Why they're successful now, because they struggled when they were younger. They learned how to work through their struggles.
You always like to reference the Millionaire Mind book, or the Millionaire Next Door type.
Yeah.
So they have a used F-150, and they have a small house, and they have the same jeans for 10 years, and whatever else.
Yeah,
they drive to Florida instead of fly.
Right.
Stuff like that. So they're able to save the money. Okay, so I think we should talk about some of these retweets here, because that's just as interesting. And then we'll get into a couple other things. Okay. So, okay. This guy, James, says, how did the parents reach the point of being able to sit on piles of gold, though? That's to your point.
Yeah,
Do you suppose scrimping, saving, paying off debt, and doing without, being less comfortable, might have something to do with it? Yes, absolutely. Okay, absolutely. Like, to get to these levels of net worth, you had to have a good job, but you had to be smart with what you earned.
Yeah.
Right?
Disciplined in your savings.
Yes.
And delaying gratification.
Exactly. We see plenty of people that make $1 million and have very little to show for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Very little. It's sad. Okay. So that was one that I tend to agree with. Here's another one. Student says, thankfully, I have parents that love me dearly, but are not rich by any means. To think parents could deny helping their offspring or being selfish with their wealth, and the excuse is, I had to suffer, so they must suffer. It's a sad and disgusting thought. So what about this one, Jim?
So I would say, I mean, my first instinct is it's pretty easy to pick on the kids, but at the same time, you can see them making an argument for wanting some help and a head start. I just think that's a slippery slope, and you have to do it in a smart way.
So, I had to suffer, so they must suffer. That's an interesting line, but it is a lesson. I mean, suffering, like life is a struggle, right? The struggles make us stronger. They say. So, first of all, I would say this dude is not suffering, okay?
Yeah.
He's not suffering. Like, we can look at people who are suffering, right? Let's put that into perspective. He's like struggling with daycare.
Right.
Okay? He has a used Escalade instead of a new Escalade.
He lives in a nice area.
He lives in a nice house. It's not as big as he wants. Okay, cry me a river, right?
Right. What if you just changed that word suffering to learning?
Yeah.
Right? My parents had to learn, so I have to learn. Right?
Yes.
Instead of my parents had to struggle, so I have to struggle.
Yes.
It's just the way you approach it and look at that subject.
All right, here's another one. If he has a brain that can function and 2 hands that can work, he's being a spoiled brat. I realize at roughly 25 that the single most important lesson of becoming a grown man, not a child, was that no one was coming to save me. Another man's money is not yours. Inheritance is a gift, not owed. I think this is pretty good. The thought of being a man and not a boy, right, is being on your own, right? Leaving the house, right?
Right.
And I think that resonates with me a lot. And just because it's your parents' money doesn't mean that it's owed to you, okay?
Right.
Not your money.
Right.
It's your parents' money.
It's like, people that think, every time you go out to dinner, whoever has the most money should buy for everybody. Well, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. It's just a mindset that I think is kind of warped.
Okay, here's a couple more. This guy will probably inherit a staggering sum in his 60s. But your kids don't want to inherit $50 million at age 65. If you have the means, it would probably make sense to give them some when they're actually struggling to build a life versus when they're senior citizens. So this makes sense too, right? And so what we see with people that are very wealthy is they do make gifts to their adult kids, small gifts, every year, up to the gift tax exclusion. And so, a lot of people do this, and it resonates with me. It's a way that you can get your estate down if you're, faced with estate taxes, but it's also a way that you can pass money on and witness that while you're still alive. Because to this guy's point, if I die and my kids get all the money when they don't need it anymore, right? Then I don't get to witness helping them at all, right? So I get that too, okay? But if my kid is whining like this, I'm probably not going to give him the money.
Yeah, and that,
You know what I mean?
no, for sure. And this is the point that I said I can kind of see both sides because of that. Like, enjoy it now. Let's use it together, whatever. But maybe the parents don't agree with the way this guy's living. Maybe they don't think he should be in a high cost of living state, spending too much money on used cars and all this stuff. Maybe the parents have already given a bunch of gifts. We already talked about there not being any student loans. Maybe this guy got college paid for free and clear, and the car he got before the large SUV, maybe they got that for him. Like, there's a lot of things here that they could have done to help along the way, and maybe this couple didn't take advantage of it as much as they should have, because now they've racked up credit card debt and depleted all their savings.
That's a good point too. Okay, we have two more. So here's a guy. Hopefully, this is a mindset that dies with the boomers. Ooh, brutal. Kids don't need a $1 million plus inheritance when they're 55 or older. Sure, it helps, but most of their life is passed by and done. People need money at most around 30, starting families, needing bigger homes and cars, daycare, 529s. Okay, well, he said grandkids 529s. A lot of our clients who are grandparents that are well off, they want to fund an education 529 for college, or like an educational legacy fund. And I get that. I love that idea, okay? But, to say I need $1 million now instead of like maybe the annual gift tax exclusion amount, which is what, like 18 or 19,000, something like that. Like, okay, I can see this guy's point, but also we have to have our own struggle to learn and to become a better person.
Right.
There's part of that too. Here's our last one, okay? I have a friend like this. His parents are worth closer to $20 million. The parents live alone in a giant house in Florida. They're angry at the world most of the time. The kids are responsible and work hard. They're not rich. It's a truly strange phenomenon. Don't have a father, so hard to relate, but seems weird to not level up your kids. Well, Adam, to try and level up your kids oftentimes is not, you're doing them a disservice, right? So to level up, to me, is like a big time gift, right? Rather versus like a smaller I love you type gift.
Yeah.
So let's bring in our good friend Scott Donnell, who's the founder of Dinner Table. And for those of you who have been following and watching and paying attention, Dinner Table is, a fantastic way to train your kids how to make money, teach them about money, the fight against entitlement, have them respect the dollar, and talk about, heritage, not inheritance. So it's,
right.
Scott is a perfect person to chime in on a topic like this. So here's what he says, okay? He says, we want to give them a leg up, not a handout. Okay? A leg up, not a handout. We want to match what they save. A matching contribution. Where have we heard that before?
Yeah.
We want to use a program like Dinner Table, like the Dinner Table app, to help kids make a lot of money when they're kids, so they understand how to add value and create value in the world. They can make, some examples here where they make $100,000 in high school. And imagine how much you learn by doing that and what you could be worth at 30 compared to, the person complaining here. Okay. And the concepts of I love you gifts, like $10,000 here and there versus I need to be leveled up type things. That's entitlement versus the I love you gift, you know, helps you maybe take care of a daycare or whatever, you know, stuff like that, or fund the 529. You know, my money is not my kids' money. It's mine. Right? Our kids don't own our stuff.
Right.
Okay? So I think that these are some interesting things to think about. And it's clear that the person who wrote this post like was not raised in the dinner table mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Scott's comments are great, you know, thinking about, you know, ways to help them, matching, you know, looking to help them, give them opportunities to advance in their career and to learn. I suspect if these parents just gave this couple in our example here money, if they just said, here's, you know, 50 grand, do you think they'd instantly be out of debt and put that money in 529s and do all this smart stuff with it? Or would they find a way to maybe level up to the new large SUV instead of the used large SUV?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah. So I get your point, and I think that they would not pay off the credit cards, and they'd be like in Bahamas.
Yeah, they'd find something else to spend it on.
They'd be at Atlantis.
Right. Right.
Okay, so look, this is not us judging people, but we just bring this up because, you know, probably 50% of the people are on one side and 50% on the other, but there are some things that we can agree on. And, you know, we don't have all the information here because it's just a couple paragraphs, but we want to try and teach our kids how they can be in a position where they don't feel entitled or so jealous or whatever the feelings are, where they can be on their own as a family, not relying on their parents, you know, to bail them out, so to speak. And like, but like this guy who made this post, if the brokerage account was like 500,000 or $1 million, would he feel the same way?
Yeah.
He's saying 10 million plus, okay? And maybe that's what got him. But maybe the parents spend 500,000 a year.
Right.
Like, what if they do? Then they need the full 10 million.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, you know.
I would say, though, I mean, as a parent, I'm way more likely and willing to help my kid who is working really hard at something and trying really hard to accomplish something and just needs a little extra, as opposed to just sitting around like wishing and hoping for whatever it is to fall into their lap. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I think that's probably where these parents are coming from too, I would suspect. You know, if you're going to do the right things, make the right decisions, it's much easier to reward that than an entitled mindset.
So, Jim, we do have a dinner table webinar that's coming out, and we also have a recording that we did with Scott Donnell on the dinner table concept. So if these concepts resonate with you, check it out. It's on our YouTube channel, which you're on right now, presumably. So ring the bell, and you'll get the notifications. And I believe the Scott Donnell one was back in August, so check that out in August recording, August 2024. If you're looking for a second opinion with what you're doing with your money so you can get to that $10 million level, reach out to us at peakwm.com.